Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Now, I know we just came off of a break, but I'd like to request for everyone to please take your seat and settle down. We are down to our final plenary for this afternoon, after which later tonight, everyone's just going to have fun. So I'd like to invite everyone to please take your seat and settle down. If you can hear my voice outside, may I request for you to join us inside Ballroom C and D so that we can begin our final plenary, which is all about Advocacy Working Group, or the Advocacy Working Group Plenary. Good afternoon. A familiar face. I've met you, I believe, in the Manila Forum. Was it? I'm not sure, but familiar face. I've actually come across several familiar faces here today. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats so that we can begin. But right now, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I hope you all had a refreshing break, and more importantly, that you found the breakout sessions earlier both engaging and insightful. There was certainly a lot to take in, from practical tools to real-world experiences across different areas of competition, enforcement, and policy. Now, as we move into the final stretch of today's program, we now turn to the penultimate session, focusing on how we communicate the value and impact of competition policy beyond this room. We now proceed to the Advocacy Working Group Plenary entitled Innovative Ways to Advocate Competition Benefits. In this session, we explore how competition authorities can better communicate the benefits of competition to a wider audience beyond traditional stakeholders. As public understanding becomes increasingly important in sustaining support for competition policy, agencies are finding new and creative ways to engage through digital platforms, social media, storytelling, public campaigns, and simplified guidance materials that make competition law more accessible and relevant. The discussion will also look at how these tools can be used to promote key enforcement instruments, such as leniency programs, strengthen compliance, and ultimately prevent future infringements. It will further explore how agencies can effectively engage different audiences, including businesses, policymakers, consumers, and the media, using modern and targeted communication strategies. As everyone is coming in and settling down, I will continue on. Leading the discussion is our moderator, Mr. Brian McHugh of the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, Ireland. A round of applause for him, please. He is joined by our distinguished speakers, Mr. Mahmoud Momtaz of the Egyptian Competition Authority. A warm welcome for him, please, as he makes his way up the stage, along with Mr. Rasul Boot of the Hong Kong Competition Commission. Welcome back to the Philippines. We also have Mr. Nuno Cunha Rodriguez of the Portuguese Competition Authority, or Mr. Nuno Cunha Rodriguez. We also have part of the panel, Ms. Doris Shepe of the Competition Commission of South Africa. Getting a lot of love from our audience today. And finally, Eunice Firi Hamafa, Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, Zambia. A warm round of applause for the lovely lady, which rounds off our panel. And we are now going to begin this session. Allow me to turn all of you over to Mr. McHugh.
Thank you so much. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Michael and the whole Competition Commission and the organizers for this great event. I don't think I've ever been at a conference where I've felt more welcome by so many people, so thank you. So our session is on innovative ways of advocating competition benefits. Advocacy and these sessions at conferences are one of my favourite sessions. I always love hearing new ideas and trying to steal a few. We all know in this room that competition drives prosperity in all our communities. It's a fundamental pillar of prosperity. We've all studied it. We've all seen the case studies. We know why it works. But we also know that consumers don't think about competition a lot and don't have the same view that we do. So it's very important that we communicate competition benefits, that we get our message across to all stakeholders. It's probably more important now than ever, given that the times that we live in, that we do a really good job at this. So our panel here today are going to share some of ideas, some of the experiences they've had, some of the things that they've tried in terms of advocacy. So hopefully some of you in the audience today will be able to steal a few of them. So our panel includes Dr. Mahmoud Montaz, the chairperson of the Egyptian Competition Authority. He has served as chairman since January 2021. Many of us will know him from his leadership positions in COMESA, in UNCTAD, and here with the ICN. We then have Rasu Butt from the Hong Kong Competition Commission. He's been chief executive since 2021. He joined in 2015, and he's also had a career in law academia and financial services. And then we've Nuno Cunha Rodrigues, who is the president of the Portuguese Competition Authority since March 2023. Again, very familiar with all our ICN audience. He's also associate professor at the University of Lisbon, where he holds the Jean Monnet Chair. Next is Doris Chepa, Commissioner at the Competition Commission of South Africa. She's been there since 2022, a qualified attorney of over 20 years with extensive experience in competition law and government reform. And finally, Eunice Piri Hamawa, who is the Executive Director of the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission of Zambia. She has been there, she's been an economist with over 23 years of experience in competition law, consumer protection, and market regulation. So, to start off, I'm just going to set out a few of the examples that we have from Ireland. So we have just a few slides. And again, I'm going to run through these pretty quickly. The goal here, as we've talked about, is just to set out some ideas. So like you all in Ireland, we have tried different things in terms of trying to get our message across around advocacy, why competition matters and is really important. So the first example is around messaging and trying to connect with consumers. So we had a merger decision, which was blocking a car park merger at Dublin Airport. Effectively, the merger was a 2-to-1, so it wasn't a very difficult block. One of the interesting things, though, was the second car park was actually closed after COVID, and the argument was that it wouldn't reopen unless it was bought by, effectively, the monopolist. So what we did and wanted to do was to explain why our decision had an impact on consumers. So we ran a campaign with infographics about a year later, after, thankfully, the new car park under new ownership did open and did compete and did provide value for consumers. So we did a very short piece of analysis of the following summer, and we set out the prices. So just to explain, the DAA, which is the monopolist owned by the airport, its red car park, the price is up there. It was the one that would have competed most directly with Park to Travel car park, which was the new competitor as a result of our decision. And as you can see, the prices we looked over the summer was significantly cheaper from the red car park and in line with the blue car park, which is much further away in terms of distance from the airport. So we set this out on social media, these examples. Dublin Airport is the main car park in Ireland. The main airport in Ireland. There is no train station. So nearly everyone has this experience. Nearly everyone would have looked at the choice of car parks and been aware directly or as part of their family of this choice that they now had. So another thing we did to try and make it a little bit more real was to use social media. And this is just an example of my own post when I went to the OECD meeting. So I, obviously flying to Paris, had a choice of car park, and I set out on social media, this is the LinkedIn post, about my experience of using the car park and the choice that I had as a result of our decision. So that's one example of what we tried to do. Another example, what we really focus on in the CCPC in Ireland is getting on the front page of the newspaper. Both in itself, it's obviously important, and these are the two main newspapers in Ireland. But also it drives the media cycle. It drives the radio news, it drives the TV news as well to a significant extent. So we have an advocacy position in terms of taxis and opening the market up in Ireland. Ride-hailing platforms effectively are not available in Ireland, and we want the market to be open to such competition. So we work quite closely in terms of our relationship with media and our ability to make stories that will get on the front page. And you can see here in this case that we were successful. You'll also see that the media like shorthand because that's what consumers understand. So they all use Uber to explain what a ride-hailing app actually is. But this drove a huge amount of debate in terms of talk shows, in terms of TV and radio. So it was quite successful. And it's something we really focus on when we want to make a difference. Again, similarly, it's the same topic. We'd also look in terms of the business community to have op-eds and start a debate and engage on the issues to try and get them as part of the debate within the media and within wider stakeholders. This is a very different audience. So this is really around our parliament and our politicians in terms of why the CCPC is important, why we deliver huge value for consumers ultimately and for the economy. So many of you will have done these. Again, we've learned hugely with international colleagues around doing impact assessments, explaining the value that we create. And this is one we would have used to engage with Parliament in terms of those we're accountable to, in terms of the money we can save consumers, and also why we should be given further resources because we do such a great job. And that audience does like robust analysis of impact, so it works well for that particular audience. And then finally, given where we are, this is just an example of international cooperation. So this is work that we've done with a number of other agencies in Europe, including Nuno, around working together to be part of a bigger, more international debate. But we might talk more about that later as part of our discussions. Okay, so those are my examples. We will have further discussions later on them, but I will now hand over to Razu for his presentation and discussion on what they're doing in Hong Kong.
Thank you very much, Brian. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Hong Kong Commission, I would first like to thank the ICN Advocacy Workshop for putting together this session. And of course, I must extend my thanks to Chairman Mike and the excellent team at PCC for their amazing hospitality as usual. It is always good to be back in Manila. Now, today's topic is about innovative advocacy, and so obviously much of the focus will be on the method, on the method or medium in delivering advocacy. But still, I think it will be, it is worth mentioning that no matter what medium or method you use to deliver advocacy, you have to make sure that the vehicle that you use is the right one to convey the type of messages that you want to convey. So at the Hong Kong Commission, I think we are always very clear about when we need to innovate. Basically, when we feel our existing advocacy efforts are no longer effective in terms of reach or in terms of impact, or we are facing new challenges which we think the normal way we have been going about advocacy are no longer appropriate. So since the competition law came into full force in Hong Kong in 2015, my commission has spent a lot of time and efforts in advocating the benefits of competition in general and competition law in particular. And I think, and I hope many friends and colleagues here, you may be familiar with the work of the advocacy work of our commission. We are quite prolific in producing TV dramas. So from 1-minute drama, which explains individual competition law concept, to full 30-minute episodes based on real-life cases, which we have brought to our competition tribunal, we feel that we have done okay in terms of raising the awareness of people in Hong Kong about the objective of competition law and how the Competition Commission facilitate their understanding of competition law. However, I think it's not enough for us to blow our trumpet and just subjectively feel our advocacy efforts work. So in 2024, we actually engaged a market research firm to do a survey for us. Now, the survey covers about 600 companies of various sizes in Hong Kong, as well as members of the public. The whole idea is to gauge the general awareness of competition law and whether our advocacy efforts so far has had an impact on helping people understand what competition law is. Now, the findings of this survey, this is actually the second survey that we have done. We have done one survey back in 2015, but I would say that in terms of the findings, it's worlds apart. The recent survey that we have done, it shows that over 3/4 of 600 companies that we have surveyed, they do see competition law as being highly relevant to them. 81% of people of the undertakings and then the general public reported that they have some basic knowledge of competition law concepts. So by and large, not too bad. However, this survey, it has identified a major weakness, and that is, it revealed that over 80% of small and medium-sized enterprises, although they were aware about competition law being relevant to them, they are aware of the basic concept of what is price fixing, bid rigging, output restriction. They did not do anything to put in place any measures to help them comply with the law. So basically, there is no compliance program to speak of. Now, if you wonder why they didn't do it, is it because they were indifferent, that they don't care about the law? Not so. The reason why they don't have compliance program is because these SMEs do not have the same resources as big companies who can afford to engage law firms to design compliance programs for them. So this is extremely worrying because if you talk about SMEs in Hong Kong, they actually make up 98% of the business sector in Hong Kong. So as the Competition Law Enforcement Agency, we feel we need to do something to help them. So can I just very quickly? Now, working with some partners of ours, the Competition Commission, because in this particular case, if I may add, I don't think it's helpful for us to develop yet another TV drama. I don't think it's going to help the SMEs, so we have to do something else. So what we did was we worked with our partners and created an online compliance hub, specially targeting SMEs. So if you can show the slides. Okay, thank you. Now, what do we have in this? Okay. Right. In this hub, basically this hub, it comprises, and amongst other things, an interactive risk assessment tool. Now, this is interactive and presents real-life scenarios. Like, for example, if your staff receives suspicious text messages or they take part in discussions at the trade association's meeting, what do you do? It generates some sort of a traffic light risk rating, green, amber, and red. And the interesting thing about this risk assessment tool, whoever is filling in this thing, the person is not talking about how he would act. The focus is on how do you think your frontline staff or your junior staff will act in these particular cases when they receive suspicious messages or they have these, take part in these meetings. Now, another thing that we have in this hub is a ready-to-use template compliance program so that the SMEs, they can immediately use and adapt for their own purpose. We think this is very important because this is something which we have heard a lot of SMEs complain about, not having the means to do so. And also, we have these short videos on the hub. And thank goodness, all the videos and dramas which we have done before, we can still incorporate in this hub, so it did not go to waste. Now, we did not develop this hub in a silo because I mentioned that we have worked with different partners. We have worked with our NGAs. They have been very helpful. And we have worked with SME associations in Hong Kong. And they have given us a lot of insight. But I don't think I'll elaborate now because it will take up too much time. Maybe later on, if I have time, I'll elaborate a bit on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rezu. Yes, I was glad to see there was some TV videos at the end there, because I think they're always a really interesting medium. So next we have Nuno, who's going to talk to us about his experience in Portugal in terms of some of the things that they've tried in advocacy.
Thank you, Brian. Let me start by congratulating the Philippines Competition Commission for the warm welcome for the organization that really puts the standard high when it comes to the ICN annual meetings. So I will explain a little bit of the Portuguese experience when it comes to advocacy, but let me start by saying that the advocacy role goes hand in hand with the enforcement role that an authority has. So advocacy is as important as the enforcement role that we have in our authorities, and they are both sides of the same coin at the end. So they go hand in hand, because many times we tend to see advocacy as a side dish, if I may say so, of the role of an authority, and it's not. So when I took office, one of the things that I realized is that it was important to foster the close engagement between the authority and the civil society, and that's okay. And that's why we started to some programs in order to get a closer relations with the civil society and to get some engagement with the civil society. I think it's important for any authority to leave its headquarters. Many times our daily activity is much based on the relation with big firms, in merger control and all that. And sometimes I would say we tend to forget the final consumer and the worries that they have. So I think it's important to leave the headquarters, to speak with small and medium companies, to speak with consumers, with the municipalities. And that's what we did in Portugal. So we started what we called a campaign, and 3 years ago the authority celebrated its 20th anniversary, and in Portugal we have 20 big cities. So we started this campaign which was called 20 Years, 20 Cities, and tend to try to reach people more closely and to promote a direct engagement at the regional level. So we did that. It was interesting because we explained in this sessions that we had once a month in each municipality of the biggest cities in Portugal. We explained the benefits of competition, the risk of infringement of competition. We had an audience, many times it was a big one, sometimes it was a smaller one, but at the end of the sessions, we received some indicia, some tip-offs of cartels that people were explaining us, and they told us, look, we didn't we didn't understand that cartels could be at a regional level or a local level. We thought they were on national-based cartels. And we explained, no, you can have local and regional cartels, and that led us to start some investigations and even to sanction some cartels at a regional and a local level based on this campaign that we had throughout the country. So again, it was important to explain the benefits of competition, the need for firms to comply with competition law, and also it helped us in our activity, enforcement activity, to start some investigations based on the indicia tip-off that we received during this campaign. Later on, more recently, we started a new campaign which we label it Competition Plus campaign, which is a new cycle of cross-policy and interinstitutional dialogue that we are now focused more on key areas, namely public investment, education, health, justice and housing. And with this campaign, we aim to promote a consistent and cross-cutting application of competition law and encourage the adoption of pro-competitive public policies. So the sessions are carried out with different business associations and public entities that are relevant in each of the selected economic sectors. So these efforts allow us to bridge the gap between competition and the relevant stakeholders, engaging in meaningful dialogue and that highlight the benefits of competition and explain the ADC's, the Portuguese Competition Authority mission, while strengthening deterrence and improving the quality of complaints that we received. So these are examples of two outreach initiatives that we have promoted in Portugal. When it comes to advocacy, I would say as a tool, like I said, we think there is a virtuous circle between the advocacy role and the enforcement role in a mission of an authority. For example, in the past, we started a sector inquiry in the fintech sector, and we received some complaints from the fintech providers that led us to open an investigation in an abuse of dominant case in the payments services sector. And at the end, we sanctioned a firm in an abuse of dominant position case in the payment services sector that started because of the advocacy efforts that we did during this sector inquiry in 2021. And we have what I would call a reversed advocacy case. We had several infringements of competition law in the retail sector that led to some hub and spoke cases. We had 13 in total, and at the end we issued some recommendations to firms to comply. And so we had a paper on this about the need to comply with competition law in the retail sector, namely in supermarkets, after these cases that we had. So I firmly believe that competition authorities must ensure to use this integrated use of toolbox that we have at our disposal. We have placed, so in Portugal, a strong emphasis on promoting a shared understanding of competition as a driver of competitiveness, innovation, and consumer welfare. And for so, we are also trying to promote our activity when it comes to publishing a wide range of studies, best practices guides, and recommendations that cover all the areas that we think are priority for the economic activity. So we've done that, for example, in terms of electric mobility. We had a huge study on electric vehicle recharging in Portugal that led to some amendments of the Portuguese legislation in this context. We had another study about sustainability agreements and the need to explain firms when they are complying and how they don't comply with the competition law when it comes to sustainability agreements and the possibility of use of greenwashing in terms of agreements between companies. So we try to explain a little bit on this. And for example, in AI, I think the Portuguese authority is quite well known and recognized when it comes to the interplay between the generative AI and competition concerns that we have. So we've done the same way. And also through other initiatives that we had in the past and over the years to support the promotion of a strong competition culture. And these are some examples that are on the slides available. We have, for example, the Portuguese Authority ADC Competition Policy Award that recognizes and encourages academic research in the field of competition law and economics. We have, I would say, also an important conference, the Lisbon Conference, that I invite you all to participate if you want. It's 2 years. It takes place in Lisbon that convenes some of the most prominent experts in competition law and economics. We have an open seminar series. I think it's popular because it's broadcast, so it's available online, live. We have received some important persons in the field of competition law and economics that were at the Portuguese Authority and gave stage to explain some of the major concerns in terms of competition law, a podcast, the ADC Competition Talks, and also we have a series of short videos that explain both our work and key anti-competitive practice that are also available online. So at the end, in a nutshell, we have several, I think, ways to promote competition throughout the country, using the social media, using our toolbox as studies, recommendations, doing our institutional cooperation with other stakeholders. I'm referring, for example, for the national parliament, for the government, even for the courts. We must not confuse independence. We are an independent authority, but also with the need to cooperate with other stakeholders in order at the end to have open, fair, and competitive markets. And that's the way we'll be doing in Portugal. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Nuno. That is a brilliant list. There's something there for everyone, I think, to have a think about and maybe follow up on. We've already stolen your idea of kind of getting out of the capital and going to the regions to meet with stakeholders, so we're planning to do that later in the year. So that's one that has already passed on to another jurisdiction, so thank you for that. So next I'll ask Mahmoud to provide his examples in terms of innovation.
So thank you, Brian, and again, thank you for PCC for this amazing event. So let me first give an idea of how things have been going 5 years ago. So we've put together a full strategy for the Egyptian Competition Authority, ECA, where basically we put the third pillar of our strategy is building a competition culture. And by building a competition culture, we set down 5 stakeholders that we're going to focus on. So one was the government, second was the judiciary, third the media, fourth would say general public procurement, and the fifth were the general consumers. So we did as Rasul have done, so since the start of this strategy, we had a survey to understand what is the level of understanding of competition within the markets. And this survey covered both businesses and consumers. And businesses do know what a competition agency is. They have a blurry understanding of what really we do, but they know that we exist, and they know that we put hefty fines. On the other hand side, the consumer had an issue. So we found that a lot of consumers did not understand pretty well what's the difference between a competition authority and a consumer protection agency. What's the role of us in the telecom sector versus what's the role of the telecom regulator, which showed us that there is a huge amount of work need to be done on that front. So to give you an example of how we addressed that, we said that in our focusing on which markets are we going to focus on within our strategy in terms of enforcement and advocacy, we focused on 3 markets. One is education, second is healthcare, and third is consumer products, food and the like. And basically, you can see that most of these sectors, they are the most generating in terms of turnover, but also they are the sectors that affects consumer very much. So they should know about a competition agency because these sectors do impact them and, on a daily basis. So we started in the education sector with the campaign. We called it Know More About Your Rights When Entering School. And it was focused on school uniforms, that you do have a right as a parent to choose where to buy your kid's uniform from. You don't have to go to buy it from school, inside the school. They actually have been selling it, or they push you to buy it from a specific store. And from that perspective, we did use a multi-channel type of strategy. One is we used targeted SMSs to around, I think, 20 million users. And the target was women in the age range between 25 to 35. And actually, it turned out very well. So we received thousands of complaints on school uniforms and how schools are pushing them towards that. On the other hand side, we had also a cooperation arrangement with the Ministry of Education. So the Ministry of Education issued a decree stating clearly that this is not something that the ministry would tolerate if they pushed parents to buy school uniform from one specific store or what have you. And both items have been using social media, sponsored ads, targeting to which consumers, type of consumers we're targeting. And this have linked also to enforcement. So within our analysis to the value chain, we found a bid rigging cartel in the education, in the printing of educational school books. We found another cartel, price fixing cartels in the English publishers of school books. We found a third cartel in what we call external books, where the parents would buy them for their kids to get trained on specific questions and so on. And we filed also a number of cease and desist orders to several schools on the matter of school uniforms. So I think this case study that we've made proved very well how we can enhance the understanding of consumers, and how, when you raise the understanding and knowledge of consumer, how that will going to reflect on the number of cases and enforcement that you're going to do, and how that also would serve a governmental purpose that they wanted to do several years back, but they didn't know how to push back such thing. And it appeared that consumers themselves could help very well in achieving such a result. And that's on, I would say, on this level of a consumer. But also, I would think on a regional level and on an international level also, there is a huge call for advocacy. And here I would call for two things. I would call for the Arab Competition Network, where we also, Egypt in 2009, we did a very interesting simulation for students, university students with legal and economic background. So we give them like a 5-day crash course, and then we give them a simulation on a real case and see how they're going to compete against each other to resolve this case. And then when we had the Arab Competition Network, we actually had the same simulation, but on different Arab nations. So different countries competing against each other from different universities. And this also raised our bar higher. So we issued what we call the research prize on competition, because there was little, I would say, research and papers written in Arabic on competition law. So I think this was something also that we wanted to raise the academic intellects to write more on competition law. So we had this prize on the level of the Arab Competition Network, which also enhanced the level of understanding of academia of competition law, which helped us also in our case laws when we were drafting them to actually cite them in that essence. So, and from a regional point of view, also COMESA Competition Commission, and also Doris is here, and Zambia also, Eunice is here. We had this very interesting digital heads dialogue on digital markets, which we all African countries sat together and we wrote together a joint statement showing that how we are going to work together in terms of looking into digital markets behavior. So, and I think these type of advocacy and advocating on how we're going to work together, how you're going to work with consumers, how you're going to work with your counterparts as a competition agencies, how you're going to work with government, all together will build the competition culture that we wanted to have in our strategy. And I think we'll come back later for more examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahmoud. Yes, I think school uniforms and school books is one of those things that resonates with consumers right across the world really strongly. So it's one you get a really good reaction when you're seen to take action in. Okay, so next we'll hear from Doris.
Thank you so much, Brian. Like everyone else, I firstly want to thank the Philippine Competition Commission for a very well-organized conference and for inviting us and for your very warm welcome and generosity. It has been wonderful to be here. Thank you very much. I also wanted to take this opportunity, given that I'll be leaving first thing in the morning and I won't have the time, to also thank the Secretariat of the ICN, Brian. I think under the leadership of the Italian Competition Authority, I think they've done a fantastic work together with the working groups of arranging a very good agenda, quite diverse, not only from the topics, but also from the speakers. And I think it's something we need to acknowledge. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of them, including to the chair of the steering group of the ICN. Thank you very much. I think what I'm going to do, given what has happened, I think Nuno did a very good job of showing all the possible advocacy programs that could happen. So I think what I'll do then is to have a case study instead of what we have done in South Africa, showing advocacy alongside enforcement, Nuno, as a campaign to get outcomes that are required. So as some of you would know, South Africa has one of the highest rates of a TB in the world, but a particular strain called multi-resistant TB. So we are across government engagement with the Department of Health in South Africa, we identified a problem. One of the core treatments of this multi-resistant strain of TB used a drug from Johnson & Johnson. This drug at the time was coming off patent, but what J&J did was they filed a secondary patent in South Africa. And secondary patent or patent system in South Africa, even now, is just a registration, so there's no assessment. So what they were going to do essentially is to extend the patent of this drug. And so prices in South Africa were double that of the global drug facility for the lowest income countries and was going to remain like that for the coming 5 years as a result of the second patent. What we did was to design a carefully orchestrated advocacy/enforcement campaign to address this concern. So what we did was, a week prior to the World Health Organization Global TB Forum in Geneva, the Competition Commission of South Africa initiated a complaint against J&J. We generally, and I was saying to Gina at the Heads of Authority session earlier, that we do not publicize initiations as well. So what we did was, in order to ensure that word got out, we then sent out information requests on the initiation, and those went out to local and global TB drug advocates in society, to the Department of Health, and obviously to the pharmaceutical firm. The idea was to use civil society organization, and they would use this initiation to show the injustice of secondary patent and bring it to the world stage at the World Health Organization in Geneva, calling for more countries to do the same. At the same time, we had the Department of Health use the initiation to trigger a discussion with J&J for renegotiation of price in South Africa. We received significant global press through civil society advocates, calls in Geneva by delegates for the dropping of the second patent, along with local pressure to drop the price in line with the global drug facility prices. It also caught on the attention of campaigners, social media campaigners globally, and this was put on social media, which had millions of following. The result of this public pressure was that J&J dropped the secondary patent, not just in South Africa, but in 134 middle and lower income countries. They renegotiated their price with the South African government, where they reduced their price by up to half of their previous level. And for us, this was a very innovative way of using civil society, the media, government departments, and even taking the matter at a global level using other global conferences like the TB conference. While we technically used the enforcement tool, the best results came out of the advocacy component of this, which brought about the outcome that we would ordinarily, if we had gone into litigation, would not have gotten the results. This was in matter of months, Brian. This did not take a year. I think we initiated the complaint around October, and in a couple of months, we had gotten this sort of results. As most of you would know, an excessive pricing of this nature takes minimum five years to happen. Did this work? Obviously it did. Have we used it before? We've tried in other areas. So I think for us it was just garnering of considerable global media pressure from both civil society and national governments, and we were then able to get the outcome that would benefit everyone. We have tried to use it in other pharmaceutical cases. It hasn't quite worked, where we were left to use litigation, and those matters are still going on, and we haven't gotten the results. However, we have been successful in other areas. And the food pricing has been one area where we use this kind of advocacy campaign. And as you would know, after the outbreak of the war in Ukraine, we saw global sunflower seed price escalate. We noticed that our local commodity market had not escalated given the fact that South Africa has a self-supply of sunflower seeds. So, but our oilseed processor and retail prices had priced their commodities in line with the global price increases, to to take considerably higher margins and exploit consumers. We made this central to our quarterly essential food price monitoring report and engaged in media campaigns to highlight this to the public. The result was we saw sunflower oil prices coming down through specials of about 25% within 2 days of our campaign, media campaign, and prices dropped down to normal margin level within a few months of this campaign. And so we believe that these campaigns, advocacy, can help alongside enforcement to be able to get outcomes that benefit as consumers. So that's what I thought I should speak about, which is, we thought, quite a successful a campaign on advocacy, and I thought a good case study to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris. Yeah, I mean, it's good to remind ourselves that like our job is often literally to take on abuse of power, and there's nothing that gets the public angrier than abuse of power. So being able to harness that anger to get quick results it's a fantastic outcome. Okay, so we're going to move on next to Eunice for her presentation.
Thank you so much. And to begin with, allow me to just also thank you, give thanks to the ICN organizing team and the chair for this opportunity, but also to the Philippines Competition Authority for organizing such a great event. So I'm going to speak about how we understand advocacy as CCPC, Competition and Consumer Protection Commission Zambia, the benefits. I'll give a few examples and use the target audience. So, to begin with, I just want to say that we also value advocacy as CCPC. We look at competition policy to effectively mean enforcement and advocacy. We think this leads to proactive market shaping. When you look at our strategic plan, one of the key pillars is to create stakeholder value. So in creating stakeholder value, we've noticed that we have various stakeholders, which include government, civil society, organizations. We have businesses, consumers, NGOs. So we use advocacy for various audiences. So when you look at the benefits of advocacy include competitive markets, informed stakeholders, and voluntary compliance. So in the main takeaway, I would say that prevention is more effective than cure. So talking about examples, I'll give the first one being policy influence and market interventions. In this one, we, in the first example, policy advisory role to government and legislature. Our target is the government in some cases where we also make submissions to Parliament on various bills that need to be passed. And then we also undertake market studies and sector inquiries. The main issue is to identify barriers in various sectors, and the target is businesses or enterprises. This also ends up with recommended reforms. Another example, or an example of a success story is that of the cotton sector, where we ended up with a bill or reforms in the sector. And here I can say that the key takeaway is evidence-based advocacy drives real reforms. I can go to the other issue, which is engaging markets. As a commission, we have an open door policy. We have, so far in 2026, had firm engagement in terms of courtesy calls. So we receive requests from various market players. So far, we've had engagements with banks at individual level. We've got fellow regulators and MNLs that have come through asking to pay a courtesy call on the Office of the Executive Director. And the idea really is to just to make them, they want to introduce themselves, they want to know who's running the commission, and just to show that they understand the law, they want to be compliant. They expect to be guided on what the do's and don'ts are. So we find this to be quite effective. And then enterprise training is one other example, and the target being the businesses or the enterprises. So far in 2026 rather, we've already conducted 21 trainings. And these are also where sometimes there is a request from the enterprises themselves, and sometimes we just follow our schedule because it is part of our work plan where we want to reach out to so many enterprises as possible. And the outcomes here include early risk detection on the part of the enterprises. This leads to zero penalties because then they quickly understand that they need not breach the law by not engaging in certain conduct. So this improves compliance, and it also creates good, stronger relationships. My country, we have the government that is pro-business, so they really do not want us to be seen to be like hiding and waiting for businesses to breach the law, and then we go with a whip, which is enforcement. They would rather we engage as much as possible to avoid businesses breaching the law. Then here the key takeaways, engagements help to build trust, and trust is a regulatory asset. Future of advocacy. Here I would like to speak about the fact that the Commission is now engaging in digital innovation, and one of the key things that we're doing is we have a new initiative which we call Videos on Demand training tools. So we have videos, about 22 videos that you are able to find on our CCPC YouTube, and these actually are targeting all stakeholders because they're speaking to everyone, it be government, business, and consumers. So the beauty with the videos on demand is that they have a scalable digital outreach, as they can be used on various other platforms or social media platforms. So the lessons on this is that there's continuous engagement, as people can actually go to the YouTube at their own time and watch these videos and learn. And then there's advocacy, the fact that advocacy reduces enforcement burden. So here the key takeaway is that advocacy is actually supposed to be strategic and not supplementary. So I'd like to end by concluding that advocacy enables the Commission to shape markets proactively as it strengthens competition through policy influence, stakeholder engagement, and digital innovation. So I'd like to request that you kindly show just a bit of, maybe 2 minutes of the video, just to give you an example of what we have on videos on demand.
Hello, my name is George Manda. I'm a research analyst here at the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission. On today's episode, we'll be looking at market inquiries. And under market inquiries, this segment will be done in 2 parts. I'll be doing the first part, and my colleague will join in on the second part. Under the first part, we'll be looking at what are market inquiries, what triggers market inquiries, some of the processes under market inquiries, and lastly, we'll be looking at misconceptions under market inquiries and how market inquiries promote competition and enhance consumer welfare. So jumping right into it, what is a market inquiry? A market inquiry is a comprehensive assessment of the market that is conducted by the Commission, where it has reasonable grounds to believe or suspect that there is distortion or restriction of competition, 1, in a particular sector of the market, or 2, in a specific agreement that is cutting across various sectors. So how then does the Commission initiate a market inquiry? So the Commission initiates a market inquiry when there are certain triggers. So some of these triggers include when there are complaints that are received by the Commission. So under the Commission, we have 3 major departments which enforce the law. We have the Directorate of Consumer Protection, we have the Directorate of Mergers and Monopolies, and the Directorate of Restrictive Business Practices. So the complaints received under the Directorate of Consumer Protection are usually the ones that trigger a market inquiry. So we look at complaints that are received in a specific time frame, say within a year or within 6 months. When we notice that there's a pattern of complaints that are received and directed to a particular sector, as we resolve some of the issues or the complaints that are received, the Directorate of Consumer Protection then refers some of those cases which are happening in a particular sector to the Research and Education Unit, and we initiate a market inquiry. The next thing which triggers a market inquiry is studies that are conducted by relevant authorities or relevant bodies. Why we limit it to relevant authorities is because we understand that there are different people out there who carry out different studies. So we look at what has been raised by relevant authorities. So in every study, there are findings and recommendations. So under those findings and recommendations, we look at the ones that seem to distort or restrict competition in a particular market, and then we flag it as a Research and Education Unit and dive into a market inquiry. The third and the last thing that allows the Commission to initiate a market inquiry is through its regulation of restrictive business practices and certain anti-competitive trade practices. So like I earlier alluded, we have 2 major departments which are under competition, that is Directorate.
So thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Eunice. There's always a wannabe actor in all of our organizations. We're always getting people looking to take part in the videos. It's always very popular. I'm just going to move on then to some follow-up questions. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of advocacy initiatives here today. I'm just wondering how you measure success strategically in terms of your advocacy teams or your advocacy projects. What are the key metrics for you? So I'll start with Razu, just in terms of Hong Kong, but anyone else feel free to chip in.
Yeah, thank you very much. In terms of the compliance hub that I mentioned, we sort of measure it by way of quantitative and qualitative. The quantitative measure, after we have launched the hub, we launched it in January 2025. And within 1 year, we recorded about 25,000 visits to the site. There were 55,000 page views. We also recorded about 650 undertakings visiting the site. They have done the risk assessment test, and around 130 small and medium-sized enterprises, they did download the template compliance program. So I would say it's still early days, so hopefully the number will continue to improve. In terms of the qualitative measure of how this hub has been doing, we have been receiving a lot of positive feedback from the SME trade associations, because in fact they were our partners in developing the hub. And according to the leaders of these SME associations, after we put out the hub, it has sparked a lot of discussion amongst their members about competition law and about the need to comply. And they also highlighted, I mean, while they do have knowledge about the main prescriptions under competition law, you know, things like price fixing, market sharing, bid rigging. However, there are some areas which they are not so sure about, and they have still continued to do. For example, in trade association meetings, you still have people talking about prices, and you have people who passively sit there and they feel, as long as I do not participate in the discussion, I just keep quiet, everything will be okay, and you know, it is against the Asian culture to walk out. If you walk out, it's very rude. I mean, you still have that kind of sentiment going on, but after we push out the hub, I think the perception has changed, and hopefully this will bring about some future changes in the way they conduct their businesses. But going forward, I think it is necessary for us to, I think we will definitely do another follow-up survey, because it's not enough to evaluate the success of these initiatives by way of, you know, how many people click on that site and how many people have downloaded documents from the site. You need to make sure that people, after they visited the site, after they have sort of made use of the materials and literature which is in it, they actually put in place long-term compliance programs. I think that will be the most important aspect of our evaluation. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rasu. Doris?
Thank you so much, Brian. I think we have realized that assessing the impact or measuring the impact of advocacy is quite critical to see the outcome. And so we are now gradually making sure that measurement is a central design feature of the advocacy work that we do. And here, what success looks like is in terms of behavioral change, market access outcomes, and policy uptake. So it's no longer about we've gone to so many meetings, we've produced so many documents, but in fact seeing behavioral change. An example I would give is what we did with guidelines that we published for competition in the South African automotive aftermarket. What we had seen when we published this in 2021 is we were receiving a number of complaints of exclusionary conduct in the automotive aftermarket sales. And in most instances, we were not able to have to sustain cases of abuse. So we decided to create these guidelines in 2021. And what we saw, and the aim really of the guidelines was to lower barriers to entry, promote economic inclusion and transformation, and enhance transparency in appointment processes and increase consumer choice and promote competition within the automotive aftermarket value chain. In 2023, what we then did was to have an impact review report. We did a survey to see whether the people who were complaining were seeing the effect of the guidelines in. And that survey was designed to quantify that awareness and compliance level, essentially. And we found that 83% of the respondents were aware of the guidelines, and complaints relating to bundling and warranty invalidation had declined compared to pre-areas. 50% of the independent service providers, although reported less than 30% of their work involving in warranty vehicles, but at least they were getting work from OEMs as well. Access to technical information remain a significant constraint, with most OEMs' technical data either unavailable or inaccessible, only or accessible through paid subscription. So what we then did was to look at this outcome to fashion new forms of guidelines to deal with those issues that were coming. So we did the same even with our school uniform report, where we go back to the beneficiaries to see whether our guidelines are helping to get the sort of outcomes that we wanted to see. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Doris. The screen is flashing at me currently, but I am keen to have a conversation about advocacy in terms of working internationally. So in terms, Nuno, of your experience of working internationally, what was successful and what can ICN do to continue to grow these discussions into successful initiatives?
Well, Brian, I think that the competition concerns are more global nowadays than it were in the past. So we need to cooperate more and more in the current times. For example, we just had a meeting of Heads of Agency related to the energy crisis that we are facing. And the problems are the same throughout the countries. And the solutions can be also at the advocacy level throughout the countries. So we need to cooperate more and more. And for that, international forums such as the ICN, the OECD, the UNCTAD are fundamental for all countries, small, medium, and big jurisdictions, I would say. For small and medium jurisdictions, for example, the possibility to cooperate on advocacy is important to have a stronger voice at the international field. We've done that in the past, and Brian referred, for example, at the European level. We made a joint statement on 6, I would say, medium-sized jurisdictions, Ireland, Portugal, among others, on the importance of not to have a lax merger control, but to reinforce the importance of merger control in terms of the function of the EU internal market in the aftermath of the Draghi report. Also, when it comes to joint statements in the European Union, we have the European Competition Network, which is a strong voice within the European Union, and also when it comes to the application of EU competition rules. We have done several joint statements. I'm listing some here. For example, in the context of COVID-19, a joint statement on how competition law would be applied in an exceptional context in 2022 on the response to the war in Ukraine, or to support the European Commission's initiative to adopt guidelines on Article 102, abuse of dominant position. So these are some examples of joint statements that we did in the context of the European Union. But I would say also at international level, for example, even if you don't have a regional agreement, you can do joint statements in between competition authorities of different states throughout the world, and that helps to have a stronger and to foster the message of the importance of competition law and to comply with competition law, namely through advocacy. So I do think that nowadays it's more important, more than ever, to have a strong voice in the international field and to reaffirm the importance of the ICN. And the ICN also had a role and has a role when it comes to advocacy. I do remind the role that we had, for example, in the impact on agriculture, that Doris, you were involved in that mission, and other examples that we have in the ICN. So my final message is that to keep the ICN working and to keep the union among the states of the ICN. More and more, it's important to have the union and coherence among us. So that's my final message. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Nuno. And then finally, Mahmoud, your experience of international cooperation in terms of advocacy?
I might have touched upon that when I was talking, but I mean, I think, as Nuno said, I know we need to wrap up, but I think it's the same thing. We need to be as united as possible. On an African side, I would say now with the African Continental Free Trade Area coming in, I think this is the role of all African competition agencies to enhance and help each other on different aspects, policy, how we could enforce better our laws, how to have inline due processes. I think this is a very important thing. And how to educate the people and how to link the importance of competition to people, because I think consumers, from our experience, are the best advocates to competition law, and they might be more convincing than a competition agency to the government. And from that perspective, I think our work on the African side, on the Arab side, I think is a very important one, and definitely being a co-chair in the advocacy working group in the ICN, I think this is also build another angle, which is a very important one to our work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahmoud. So unfortunately, we need to wrap up now. We could talk a lot longer. I must say the international cooperation and the joint statements had a significant impact in terms of senior stakeholders in Ireland, as one example. So it is something that does have an impact, does have an effect. So thank you very much to the panel. We have heard multiple examples for you to think about and take away. We've seen videos. We've seen different competitions, whether students or research. We've seen approaches with social media. We've seen compliance hubs. We've seen regional engagement. We've seen how public outrage can be used to make a difference really quickly. So I'd like you to join me to thank our panel today.
Indeed, thank you very much to our moderator and panelists. May I invite everyone who's seated right now to please take center stage for a photo op. And I'd like to invite to once again give them another round of applause, please. A little bit closer together. And let's give our photographers our biggest smiles. Looks like quite a number are taking this photo. And let's wave for the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, please do stay put. We have one more thing on our agenda before we take a break. And I have a few messages for everyone to take note of for what's happening later tonight, especially your attire for what's in store this evening. So please do stay put. We still have one more thing happening this evening. But again, another round of applause, please, for our moderator and our panelists. Hopefully that was an insightful plenary. Okay. As you can see, there's plenty of things happening on stage. That's because we are setting the stage for what is happening next. Because now we move on to a special segment that celebrates impactful advocacy initiatives from across the global competition community. Welcome to the ICN-World Bank Group Advocacy Contest Awarding Ceremony. This segment recognizes outstanding efforts by competition authorities in promoting competition advocacy, highlighting innovative, effective, and inspiring initiatives that have made a meaningful difference in their respective jurisdictions. Through this partnership between the ICN and the World Bank Group, we shine a spotlight on best practices that advance pro-competitive policies, strengthen public awareness, and contribute to more open and competitive markets. I believe the stage is all set. To introduce this year's presenters, please welcome from ICN, the ICN Chair, Ms. Andrea Marvan.
Thank you. Now you can hear me. Great. So good afternoon to all of you. I hope you have enjoyed the second day of the conference. We are about to finish it. And it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this year's ICN's World Bank Competition Advocacy Contest Award Ceremony. Welcome. And to start us off, I would like to invite to the stage our organizers. First, Elisabetta Iosa, who is the acting president of the Italian Competition Authority. Please, Elisabetta. Secondly, Mario Villamor from the World Bank Group. Mario, please join us. Thank you. Since its creation in 2001, the ICN has placed competition advocacy as one of the main areas of focus from its work. From the outset, ICN members recognized that effective competition policy goes way beyond enforcement. It requires engaging with policymakers, markets, and society to promote a culture of competition. It is something that actually the heads of agency and I were talking today and yesterday a lot about. Today, that role is even more critical. In a rapidly changing global landscape marketed by digital transformation, evolving industrial policies, and new economic challenges, competition advocacy helps us ensure that interventions support an open, fair, and dynamic market. In this sense, the Competition Advocacy Contest has become an inspiring moment of the annual conference because it precisely celebrates and highlights what competition advocacy can achieve at its best. Not just sound analysis, but tangible results on markets, on public policy, and ultimately on people's lives. This year's submissions reflect both the complexity of today's environment and the creativity of competition authorities and their partners. They show how advocacy can help governments design better policies, promote a culture of compliance through innovative and digital tools, support open and contestable green and digital transitions, and adapt competition principles to local contexts without losing sight of their core objectives. The initiatives that we recognize today demonstrate that effective advocacy requires not only technical expertise, but also collaboration, persistence, and the ability to engage and deliver and diverse stakeholders. They affirm that advocacy is not a complement to enforcement, it is a cornerstone of effective competition policy. By shaping the broader policy framework, advocacy helps ensure markets remain open, fair, and contestable. So today, we celebrate those who have translated these principles into actions, and I am very happy to stand here before all of you. Before I finish, I would like to recognize Elisabetta and the team from the Italian Competition Authority for their continued leadership and dedication in steering this initiative with such vision and consistency. I want to also express my gratitude to the World Bank for its long-standing partnership. This context is a shining example of how collaboration between two global institutions can have meaningful and lasting impact on the broader competition policy. Please join me in a round of applause again for our amazing organizers. And finally, but not least important, I want to extend a special word of thanks and my deepest gratitude to our NGOs and non-governmental advisors, with particular thanks to Professor Eleanor Fox and Mariana Tavares. They are not here with us today, but I am sure and hope they're hearing us on a live stream. And thank you for your thoughtful and rigorous contributions on the evaluation panel. So on behalf of the ICN, my warmest congratulations to this year's winner and honorable mentions. Your stories help inspire us all and remind us that advocacy, when done well, can reshape markets, improve lives, and drive real change. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the co-chairs of the Advocacy Working Group, it's a real pleasure to welcome you to the award ceremony for the 13th edition of the Competition Advocacy Contest. It remains a true privilege for the Italian Competition Authority to partner with the World Bank Group on this initiative, which year after year continues to grow in ambition and reach. The contest is, to my mind, one of the finest expressions of what the ICN stands for: International cooperation built on shared values and common commitments to making competition work for people. Since its inception, the Italian Competition Authority has been a proud and enthusiastic supporter of this initiative, which provides an innovative and genuinely engaging platform to showcase outstanding advocacy efforts from around the world. What strikes me most about this year's edition is both its breadth and its depth. The 4 themes reflect the full complexity of the challenges competition authority face today. From navigating rapid geopolitical and economic change, to fostering compliance cultures through digital tools, to embedding competition principle in the green and digital transitions, and to reflecting on how global convergence meets local context. The entries we received this year are a testament to the creativity and determination of agencies across all regions and at all stages of development. Once again, the contest has given a platform to authorities that may not always have been a strong presence in the international fora, and their stories are no less important for that. Quite the contrary, in fact. On behalf of the co-chairs of the Advocacy Working Group, I would like to extend our warmest congratulations to all the winners and honorable mentions. And a sincere thank you to every agency that submitted an entry. Your commitment, your ingenuity, and your passion for competition are what makes this context matter. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the World Bank Group, I congratulate all the awardees, and I would also like to congratulate our partners from the Italian Competition Authority for their leadership and close collaboration on this advocacy contest. For our first theme, advancing competition advocacy in times of rapid changes in global landscape, the winners are Paraguay and Nigeria. The honorable mention goes to Egypt. In Paraguay, the Competition Authority took the country's dominant card payment processor and won. It worked with the central bank to pass a new law requiring payment networks to open up and interconnect, making life easier for businesses and consumers alike. Please welcome to the podium Eduardo Gonzalez, member of the Board of Directors of the National Competition Commission of Paraguay. Congratulations. Nigeria's entry is a special one. It comes from Startup Abuja, a social enterprise and accelerator platform dedicated to empowering startups, SMEs, and emerging founders. This enterprise tackled a problem many authorities face. How do you make markets work better for startups and small businesses in fast-moving digital sectors? Through stakeholders, dialogues, and creative outreach, the agency put competition on the agenda of policymakers and ecosystem players alike. On behalf of Startup Abuja, please welcome to the podium Frederick Omatseyin, Principal Legal Officer of Nigeria Federal Competition and Consumer Commission. Egypt's Commission Authority did something remarkable. It turned a competition principle that public and private companies should compete on equal terms into actual law. Its advocacy led to the abolition of tax privileges for state-owned companies, leveling the playing field in a very concrete way. Please welcome to the podium Mahmoud Montaz, Chairman of the Egyptian Competition Authority. Congratulations. For Theme 2, promoting a culture of compliance through innovative advocacy and digital tools, the winners are Dominican Republic and Guatemala. The honorable mentions go to Singapore and the Philippines. Pro Competencia in the Dominican Republic trained 800 public officials from nearly 200 institutions to spot bid rigging and procurement. It also gave them practical tools to act on it, including a collusion traffic light with 49 concrete red flags. The results are already visible. 5 new collusion investigations opened in 2025. Please welcome to the podium Maria Elena Vasquez Taveras, President in the National Commission for the Defense of Competition of the Dominican Republic. Congratulations. Guatemala's story is one of ingenuity under pressure. The country had a new competition law, but the newly created authority had no budget and no IT infrastructure. Rather than wait, it built a fully functional digital platform from scratch using AI-assisted tools in time for day one. Multilingual, accessible, and free of charge. Please welcome to the podium Jorge Chen Sam, Director of the Board Superintendencia de Competencia of Guatemala. Congratulations. Singapore's Competition Authority developed the AI Markets Toolkit, a practical self-assessment tool that helps businesses check whether their use of AI could raise competition or consumer protection concerns. Simple, voluntary, and already embedded in the agency's compliance program. Please welcome to the podium Alvin Ko, Chief Executive of the Competition and Consumer Commission of Singapore. Congratulations. The Philippine Competition Commission wanted to make compliance accessible to small businesses, not just large corporations. It developed a competition compliance toolkit and built advocacy networks with universities and business groups across the country, expanding the competition culture well beyond the capital. Please welcome to the podium our hosts, Michael Aguinaldo, PCC Chairperson, Kenneth Tanate, PCC Executive Director, and Arnold Tenorio, Director of PCC's Communications and Knowledge Management Office, and Ina Tolentino, Head of Capacity Building and Advocacy Division. Congratulations and thanks for such fantastic hosts.
We now move to category 3. For theme 3, embedding competition principles in the green and digital transitions, the winners are Australia and COMESA. The honorable mention goes to Lithuania. Australia Competition Authority spent 5 years looking closely at digital platforms, search engines, social media, app stores, advertising technology, generative AI. What he found was that existing laws simply weren't keeping up. Its 10 reports led to concrete recommendations for new roles, new powers, and stronger protection of users. Please welcome to the podium Gina Cass-Gottlieb, Chair of the Australian Competition and Consumer Protection. Congratulations. COMESA Competition and Consumer Commission set out to modernize its competition rules for the digital age and succeeded. After years of advocacy, it secured reforms that now account for data control, network effects, and gatekeeper behavior in digital markets. And it went further. COMESA became one of the first competition authorities in the world to formally integrate environmental protection into its competition assessment. Please welcome to the podium Willard Mwemba, Chief Executive Officers of the COMESA Competition and Consumer Commission. Congratulations. Lithuania's competition authority looked at the EV, electric vehicle charging markets, and spotted a risk that the way municipalities were designing tenders could quietly lock out competition. It acted early, issuing recommendations that led to more open tenders and also found time to tackle misleading warranty practices that were blocking access to independent repair services. We are sorry our Lithuanian colleagues cannot join us today, but we warmly congratulate them on this well-deserved honorable mention. We now move to category 4. For our final theme, global convergence versus country specificity, contextualizing competition law and policy. The winners are French Polynesia, and for the second time this afternoon, the Dominican Republic. French Polynesia is a small island economy far from global markets with high prices and concentrated supply chains. Rather than reach for quick fixes like subsidies or price control, its competition authority took the harder path, diagnosing the structural causes of high costs and working with policymakers to embed lasting safeguards such as non-discrimination, access obligation, review mechanism directly into law. Please welcome to the podium Joan Père, President of the Polynesian Competition Authority. Congratulations. A second recognition for the Dominican Republic. When a draft law on solid waste management threatened to create regional monopolies and shut out smaller operators, Pro Competencia stepped in with a rigorous competition assessment. Its recommendations shaped the executive's decision to veto the most harmful provisions. And when the law was eventually passed, with some restrictions still in place, those same recommendations became the basis for a constitutional challenge by business associations. A real-world example of how advocacy can travel far beyond the agency's walls. Please welcome to the podium Maria Elena Vasquez Taveras, President of the Pro Competicia Dominican Republic. Congratulations. We now have a group photo for this fantastic ceremony. It's a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we give them a collective round of applause, please? Truly deserving. As we enjoy this photo op of our presenters and the awardees. A piece of advice for our awardees, make sure that you can see the photographers in front of you because that would mean they can see you. And we want to make sure that every single one is seen in this massive photo. We might have to move some around just to make sure that you are all accommodated in the photograph. And with that, we come to the close of today's sessions. Thank you for attending day 3 of the ICN Annual Conference 2026. We also want to extend our gratitude to all of our speakers and moderators for a truly engaging and insightful day. Today's discussions have not only deepened our understanding of competition policy, but also highlighted the importance of collaboration, innovation, and shared learning across our global community. Let's all give them another round of applause. Please stay put. I have some very important reminders for tonight, as well as the cultural tour that is taking place tomorrow morning. Before we end, again, just a few reminders. We look forward to seeing you tonight, all later at 7:30 p.m. for the ICN Annual Dinner. Cocktails will start at 6:30 p.m. at the MGB Ballroom BNC Foyer. That is the foyer right outside, okay? So the Marriott Grand Ballroom Foyer, that is where the cocktails will be. If you're wondering, what should I wear tonight? Should I be dressed formal, corporate, dressed down and ready to party? I know what's happening this evening, so be comfortable and yet dressy. The best way to describe it is dress like you are ready to party the night away. Okay, does that give you a good description of what's happening this evening? You're about to find out. Bring comfortable shoes as well, okay? So that's for tonight over at the foyer. That's the cocktails. And then 7:30 p.m. for the dinner. Get ready to experience the vibrant culture, energy, and warm hospitality of the Philippines. Hint, hint as to what's happening this evening. And as we move into our final day tomorrow, sessions will begin, or rather, we will meet all of you at 7:30 in the morning right here at the same venue. Aside from our last set of breakout sessions, we will also be having a cultural tour. So it's definitely something to look forward to. Speaking of which, for those of you who signed up for the cultural tour, if you've pre-registered, please do claim your shirt at the registration area. Maybe on your way out tonight, if you know you signed up for the cultural tour, please claim your shirt at the registration area. Assembly for the tour tomorrow is at 1:45 over at the Marriott Grand Ballroom lobby. Again, assembly for the cultural tour is at 1:45 at the Marriott Grand Ballroom lobby. Please wear your cultural tour shirts, which you can claim upon exit over at the registration area. I believe I got everything. So with that, once again, it has truly been my pleasure and honor being your host for today. My name is Jelly Victor. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the evening, and I'll see you all again tomorrow. Take care.